What's up, guys? So I wrote a coach's blog on Elite FTS talking about a modality in terms of recovery, and it got me thinking, like, well, okay, what else in the research out there that shows ways of improving recovery? What are some of these ideas that we have about improving recovery that may not be backed by science, but is very popular within the culture these days? So the study that I was looking at and talked about on Elite FTS was this study using menthol as a gel to put on people after they got done training. And in that study, if you go to the Elite FTS blog, but it'll go over, they had a placebo group and they used the gel, and they created kind of the similar smell so that the placebo group wouldn't know if it was menthol or not. And what it showed was, the idea that they tested a couple of different things. They tested range of motion, they tested the ability to perceive recovery, and then they also tested the vertical jump to see if there was actual improvements within their abilities to perform. What they found was that there was both equal amount of recovery in terms of perception through both the placebo and through the gel. They found no increases in range of motion, and then they did find an improvement in the people ability to recover their vertical jump. So that's huge. I mean, it beat out the placebo effect. It showed that you can improve performance, right? It's not just the perception of improvement, it's the actual idea that, okay, my performance actually improved. These are the numbers that showed that it improved faster than if I did nothing at all, if I use a placebo. So this is gonna be great for times where you're trying to peak for an event, where you're trying to be the best you can be. It may not be the best time to do year round because you want some type of adaptation, but if you're peaking for a meet or peaking for a show or a competition and recovery is like the primary goal, then that's going to be the ideal scenario. That's what you're going to want to use, and the fact that it shows that it has those adaptations to lend itself to recover the actual performance side of things is extremely important. And then also the perception of feeling better is good as well, because then you go into these training sessions feeling better and thinking that you're feeling better, and then that's going to help you perform well too. And perception is something that is really important when it comes to recovery modalities. And in the other article that I was looking at was done by Ahokis et al. I probably just butchered that name, but that's the best I can do with that. They use cold water immersion, hot water immersion, and thermoneutral water immersion, and contrast water. And they use physically active men in the study, and they performed 30-meter sprints, isometric leg presses, a bunch of counter jumps, and a bunch of stuff, right? And then they followed it up with the recovery method, and then they did a bunch of blood tests to see which recovery method would be the best. The main finding is that the groups who did contrast and cold water immersion had higher perceived feeling of self-relaxation. Besides that, there was no significant difference, right? So they felt better. But then there's also some research out there that will show that if you hate taking these ice baths, the amount of stress and the amount of cortisol levels that arise because of them is actually negative. And one of the other studies that I found was thinking about in terms of negative effects is sauna use. High heat traditional sauna use with degrees of 158 to 212. That's like your traditional saunas. It actually had a more acute fatigue and demand, a higher level of stress the body created. So you can do that with cold water therapy, these ice baths that are super popular. If the idea is to get in them and it's gonna give you a feeling of relaxation, unless you absolutely hate it and you just dread it the entire time and your stress is through the roof, your cortisol is high, that's going to impede your ability to recover. So don't, just because you see a bunch of people taking ice baths, there's not a lot of good research that proves it actually does anything to improve your ability to recover, to improve your performance. It just has the perception of it if it's in a relaxing environment. Where this study here by Rasanen et al. Found that higher temperatures normally found in traditional saunas created more fatigue after following a strength session than compared to an endurance session or a combined session by themselves. So that means the sauna added more fatigue than what you would get if you use those other sessions. So it showed that it may be best to avoid high temperature saunas 24 hours before your next training session. So if you're training on Tuesday and you're like, oh, I hit a hard training session, I'm gonna go use the sauna, and I got to train again on Wednesday, the study showed that your Wednesday session is gonna be impaired because the neuromuscular fatigue that was created by the sauna is something that you're not fully recovered from. Same thing with the ice baths, right? And then there's another study by Moreau et al. Looked at the recovery effects on the sauna when using infrared saunas, which are temperatures 95 to 122 degrees. Both these sauna studies were done with 30 minutes of sauna use, and they compared it to the traditional sauna at the same temperature, and the infrared sauna had favorable recovery effects for the neuromuscular system after maximal endurance. So maybe because it's a little bit more relaxing, the infrared sauna has a little bit more heat shock protein stuff going on. It's hard to say exactly the mechanisms of why it's better, but I would have to assume that it's less stress inducing because it's not at these extreme ends of these temperatures. So it's not super dull. It has a little bit of heat, but it's in a relaxing environment, so it has the benefits of the heat, but not the extreme benefits of the heat to where you're going to be stressed out. It's going to create a lot of fatigue. Same thing with the ice baths, right? Like you can get probably in a lesser one, which they showed with the going back and forth with the hot cold. There was a more perceived enjoyment in that than just the ice bath itself. So when it comes to recovery modalities, perception is important, but it's also important to actually do recovery modalities that have been shown with science, with cortisol tests, with these other tests that they do to check your hormones, to check your blood markers and stuff like that, to actually understand that your body is recovering. Those are going to be a little bit more beneficial to apply to you. Now, that doesn't mean that the perception of feeling good is not important. It is important. It's definitely something that you should look to do, but definitely don't fall victim to everyone else is doing saunas and ice baths, so I should be doing it too, even though I hate doing them. I dread it. I feel miserable afterwards. Those are going to be key indicators that those may not be the best recovery modalities for you. So check out these studies. Think about the things that you're doing in terms of recovery. Does it make you feel better? Is the perception of feeling better there? And then that should be the route you go. And then also look at the studies that actually show, which ones have neuromuscular, cortisol, those type of things that have been affected in a positive manner. And then that would be the recovery modalities I would use when you're getting ready for big time meets, peaking and stuff like that. There's a ton of other recovery modalities out there, but some of the more popular ones are the gels, the ice baths, the saunas. I've written articles on foam rolling and massage as well on Elite FTS, so make sure you guys check that out. And I hope you find that these articles kind of guide you along your recovery strategies, and I hope that this video lends you a little bit of help in finding what works best for you.